What's going on, guys? This is our first podcast, so
Yeah, a lot of you know us, I think. I'm Dalton, by the way. I fish for SMC, and this is...
I'm Dylan Levin, and we're sophomores at Southwest Michigan College, and
we have winter. There's 5 inches of snow on the ground. Sorry about that, technical difficulties, but there's 5 inches of snow on the ground that they weren't even calling for, so we have nothing better to do than
start
a goal that we want to do, and that was start a podcast, and hopefully that we can, I don't know, you guys can learn about us and learn from our experiences, because we go all over the place and do pretty much everything. So
Absolutely. So let's get it started with Dalton. What got you into bass fishing?
So it was about
or just fishing in general?
So fishing, actually, I got into fishing. We went to Disney World. This was, I think it was in between 4th and 5th grade, I think, and we went to Disney World. And on the way back, my grandparents and aunt and uncle, they live in South Carolina, and we're staying at my uncle's house, and he has a pond in his backyard. My little cousin, I don't know, he's like, I'm gonna say 6 years younger than I am, and I wasn't that old at the time. I was like 12, so he's like 4 or 5, and he's like, let's go fishing. I was gonna be honest, I did not want to go fishing. That was like the last thing I wanted to do. I was like, it's not sound fun, and he gave me one of his rods, and it just had like a little hook on it. That's all it had. And I put a spoon onto that, like on the hook. I didn't even tie a spoon on. I just put it on the hook. So I had no clue what I was doing. And I'm casting around, and I didn't lose it. I don't know how I didn't lose it. And I legit hooked like, I don't know, like a 12-inch bass. Like, it's stupid. I only like a 12-inch bass. And I didn't catch him. It came all the way up, and I threw a freaking fit. I was like done fishing. I was like, I don't want to fish. I don't want to fish. And we're outside, and I think like me and my cousin, we were playing around. I don't know, we were doing something. And my dad's fishing though. And he catches like a 3-pounder. I'm like, on the spoon that I legit had on the hook, and like he's like, who rigged this up like that? He was like confused by the whole thing. He ties it on, and he caught like a 3-pounder on it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like freaking out. I grab a bucket and I scoop it up, and I put water in it, and we put it in there because I was gonna show my cousin, and we were like, it got us really excited, and we got back home from the trip, and every day I wanted to go fishing. I've not caught a fish at this point in time. I've not literally caught a fish. Like 4 days of fishing, didn't catch anything when we get back home. The 5th day I was like, all right, let's go back out fishing. And I finally caught my first bass, and it was like, I don't know, like maybe that big. Like it was a bass. I caught it on a Yamamoto hula grub too. It was a pretty cool story. And I caught him, and it got me into fishing.
So what got you into Durban?
So what got me in Durban was, I think it was like, we like pike fished in this little river for like 2 years. And one day over the winter and whatnot, we were at our house, and my mom turned on ESPN because she saw the Bassmaster Elite Series on there. And like Kevin Van Dam won on Toledo Men. That is the exact one I can tell you. And right after, there's a college fishing national championship that came on ESPN, and we're like, college fishing?
So right around 2016.
Yeah, it was like, we're like, college fishing, like what's that? And then like we did research, and there was like only one program, I can't remember which one it was, that like gave out scholarships for. Like, oh my gosh, that sounds cool, whatever. And the next year, I was in 7th grade at that time. The next year, my parents surprised me with my first bass boat. It was the Javelin. Dylan knows what it is. And I started fishing.
Describe the Javelin a little bit.
It's a little 17-foot boat with a 90 horsepower. It's a nice little starter boat. It was a perfect boat. Got the job done in our local lakes, and I love the boat. But
so you grew up where?
I grew up in Indiana, northern Indiana. Lakes are kind of not that good, but there's a lot of lakes and a lot of diverse fisheries. There's like stained water, crystal clear water. It actually does teach you a lot, but the lakes are very tough. You don't see 20 pounds dropped, like hardly ever. You hardly ever see 15 pounds ever dropped, but the lakes, they do teach you a lot of diversity.
So now that you're fishing in college, you clearly fished in high school. What are some of your favorite experiences from that?
So I'm going to say my first favorite experience was going to Lake Hartwell, and we qualified for the national championship. That was pretty cool. It was like my first ever like big trip, and like out of the state really, and like figuring out my own lake with like, there's no grass. Like in Indiana, there's grass everywhere. You go to Hartwell, there's not a blade of grass in Hartwell. Then there's the blueback herring, there's spotted bass. Like we don't have any of that in Indiana. So I was like, this is crazy. And we qualified the first time ever trying. We qualified, and then I think my next favorite experience, like Dylan knows.
How'd you catch him though?
How'd I catch him? on drop shot. It was very cool. I can't.
Cane piles?
I couldn't even tell you. We literally just fished points, but not specific brush. We just fished points going up and down the shoals. See the shoal marker? We just go up and down the shoals, throwing at random fish we saw on live scope. That's literally what we did, and we caught 2 4-pound spotted bass, and the rest were barely keepers. We had to make sure they were 12 inches on the board.
So what place did you get?
Like 9.
9th out of
like 100 something.
And then they took top 10, I'm
They
guessing?
took the top 10%, whatever
Top
that
10%.
was. Top 10%. So there was over 100 boats, and we were in 9th, I think, so, or maybe 10th, I don't remember, but hey, we were in the top 10%, that's what mattered.
Do you have any other experiences?
Yeah, then my next one, this is probably my favorite one, was on Lake Guntersville when we won the MLF high school tournament out there, and that was like another crazy experience because right when we get there, I'm sure Elijah's watching, my high school partner Elijah, we're brothers. He's done a lot for me, his family's done a lot for me, and I can't thank them enough for what they've done. But we get there, and he has announced in a quarter jackhammer tied on. I no offense, Elijah, I don't know why you thought announcing a quarter jackhammer was gonna work that tournament, but he thought it was gonna work. So I'm like, okay, like throw it. We're in Seabold. We're like in the back of Seabold, and he goes to cast, and thunk right in the back of the head. I'm like, oh. I literally was like knocked out for like 2 seconds. I was like, oh, there's like 2 seconds I don't remember. Like it blacked me out. I'm like, and I came back to. I was like, it didn't even hurt. I was like, dang. And I just had my hood up. It was like 50 degrees out. It was windy and crap. I was like, I had my hood up. I didn't know. I just kept fishing. And we get back that night, and my whole sweatshirt hood covered in blood. My whole hat covered in blood. I'm like, it's still bleeding. Like 6 hours later, we're like, oh crap, this is kind of serious. And then we just washed it off, and I mean, we think it probably needed stitches, but we didn't get stitches. We were ballers. So, but then throughout practice, we kind of just ran stuff the whole time, and it wasn't really that great. Like it was good, but it wasn't that great. And then we pull up to a bridge, and I catch a 613, and there's a college kids that had their tournament like the next day. This is like the day before the college kids tournament, because the college kids always fish before the high school kids.
So it was a Thursday.
So it was Thursday. And these kids watched it, and like they're like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And then like we're talking to him and whatnot, and my dad is sitting in the back of the boat with Nico rig. That's like my dad's favorite bait. Like he only wants to throw Nico rig. And he's just sitting back there, and he's just catching them, like not like any giants, like maybe 1 or 2 3-pounders, but it's like every cast he's catching them. Like, dang, it's like the most productive spot we've had the whole trip. Like this is crazy. And then the next, so the college kids fisher tournament, I think it took like 20 pounds to win. We're like, okay, it's fishing tougher, but it's still pretty good. To top 10 is like 18 pounds. Like you needed to have an okay bag. And then the next day that night we get a text. They're like, hey, there's some severe storms moving in. We're not going to take off until like 9, 10 o'clock or something like that. They delayed it a lot. And like Wayne was at like 5:30.
Yeah.
That was like the first flight. I've never heard of that really. And so we were like, cool, we slept in, and it was pouring. Like I don't remember the amount of rain they got, but they opened like the dam and everything. Like water was moving. And this bridge we were fishing, there's current just whipping around the corner. There's like a corner of the bridge, and there's water just ripping around it. Current's moving, and me and Elijah are both like, we didn't really predict that the current was there, but we're like, let's just go start there, see where that spot leads to us. And I don't know, we caught 15 pounds in I think 30 minutes, and then, which would have won us a tournament. We didn't even know that. Like, when do you go to Guntersville and 15 pounds wins you a tournament? Like, we didn't know. And then throughout the day, we caught like just under 18 pounds, and we won it by like almost 3 pounds.
So that was your first ever?
That was like my first favorite, or like, yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Favorite?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be.
So what made you kind of, well, actually, we'll just talk about what's your favorite style of fishing?
Has to be cranking, 100%. Whether that's shallow, deep, doesn't matter. Has to be cranking. 100%. I mean, we won the tournament on a chatterbait. That won't lie to anyone. We won on a chatterbait. Like, I don't know if you could go replicate that pattern ever again, because I've tried year after year and it's never worked again. But it has to be cranking. That's the most versatile bait, I think.
Nice.
I think.
Nice.
Oh, my bad. So it's not just style, I guess. So if I had to pick where I'm throwing the crankbait, I would say probably like a DT10 on some hard bottom areas, like whether it's rock, shell, I mean even brush, but like more like that rock and shell, because I think that's where when a big fish goes to eat, he moves up on shell or shallow. It doesn't have to be shell or anything like that. When a big fish goes to eat, I feel like they move up onto like say there's a hump, like a 10-foot hump, and you'll move up on top of it where there's that rock shell and push like the bait up there. And so I think when you can crank and run these areas, like have not just fish one day hold it crank. I think when you can run areas cranking, that you're gonna. I think that's probably one of the most versatile ways, and I think that's my favorite. I have the most fun doing it too.
Nice.
So that's what I think.
So what made you kind of come to college?
So maybe come to college is like I said earlier, was my mom turned on the ESPN and we saw college fishing after.
So from a young age, you've right away
I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't know how I was going to do it or what it was going to entail. And like I didn't know anything about it. I just knew like, hey, it's something like I wouldn't mind doing it. Like then I would say when I started traveling with Elijah across the country was when I was like, this is what I want to do, is come to college, because every time we went to, there's always a college, because there I'm like, they get paid to go by the school, they get all this, and they're getting their degree too. They get to go to tournaments, they get paid for, they get a degree, like everything, because I knew I was going to go to college one way or another, but might as well fish in college. So that's why I decided to come to college.
Nice. And then what's your favorite college experience? You're now a sophomore, so you've had a whole season to experience a lot of things.
Favorite college experience has to be, I'm going to say Pickwick, the Bassmaster National Championship. There's something about just being able to qualify for the bracket and go to the
And it's
classic.
also just any national championship you really fish.
It's really any national championship.
You get this weird, eerie feeling. Even if you're not on anything, you just know that like I mean, when, especially in bass fishing, when it's your time, it's your time, and like you just know every team that's going down there, it's somebody's time.
Yep.
And
it could be you.
And it could be you. So you just get this weird, eerie feeling.
And I just think that feeling is what made it my favorite, because like Dylan said, that feeling just made it your favorite. And just in the back of your head, you're like I said earlier, just you go to the bracket, and then if you go to the bracket, you can go to the classic if you win. So it's like every fisherman's dream is to go to the Bassmasters Classic. So your dream could get answered. I'd say that's my favorite for sure.
Absolutely.
But that's enough about me. Let's talk about Dylan. So he asked me what got me into fishing. So let's hear what got Dylan into fishing.
Well, I grew up with a very Eastern European family, so we did a lot of carp fishing. We did a lot of pike fishing from a young age, and I liked it. It was fun, and I still do it sometimes, but
yeah, I was gonna say you don't do that much anymore. So
no.
You just want a derb. You don't even like to go. You go steal out fishing once in a while, but you just like to derb. So what got you into that?
Durbin? Well, so I just loved fishing. From a young age, I played a lot of hockey. So anytime I wasn't playing hockey, I was fishing. Whether it's carp fishing to anything, I just loved going out fishing. And then right around like my 8th grade year, I started kind of getting into hanging out with some of my friends. Joe, Ryan, June, and they were freshmen and sophomores in high school, and they were fishing the sectional tournaments and the state championships at our high school, and I was like, man, I want to fish competitively, like this sounds awesome. So like my freshman year, Joe was a senior, and he was graduated, and so he was our boat captain. So me and my buddy Ryan, he was a year above me, we fished our first ever tournament. I mean, we had a broken trolling motor like 2 hours into it, because we tried to go up the shallow creek. There's too much grass on the DPR. Sheared a prop. Had to make like a 25-minute run back to the truck. We're sitting there trying to fix this prop. Got it fixed. We run back to our spot, and we're like, all right, well, we got like 3 hours to we have 0 bass. We have 3 hours to fish, and fished for like 3 hours, and I ended up catching 4 fish for a good old whopping like 6-7 pounds on the DPR, and took 2nd place. And that was like, I was like, holy crap, that was actually a lot of fun. And then from that moment, I think like I started fishing a lot more high school tournaments, and then come to like my senior years or junior years where I started like really fishing a bunch of tournaments.
So you said you fished a lot of high school tournaments, so you have to have some cool stories. Let's hear a cool story about your high school tournaments.
My favorite high school experience had to be my senior year when me and my buddy Tuck and Joe drove down to St. Clair. It was kind of last minute thing. We were kind of just hanging out at the house and just, man, what do we do? And we were like, well, there's an MLF event, high school open on Lake St. Clair. It's only like 5.5 hours away from the house. And we kind of just sat there, thought about it, and we were like, you know what, screw it, let's just do it.
Right.
So we drove out there, got a Airbnb right on the Detroit River, and we didn't do very good, but I'll tell you what.
But it's just Detroit over St. Clair.
Yeah, it's just when we spent like I think 3 or 4 days out there, and it was just like, hanging out, living on the road, like, and just like fishing all day, and you're on your own. It's kind of like, I think that moment is what made me like, you know what? I would love to do this. Like, this is awesome because
So is that what made you come to college?
That was a big part of
Gotcha.
what made me come to college, was just for the sole reason of that, and it's also like the whole hockey thing situation, which I'll get into. So I think it was my senior year of high school. I came off a bunch of like quality finishes at local IBNs and ICAS, and those are 2 tournament circuits in Illinois, and I was just doing very good in some Whites and Nighters and stuff like that. But I never did bass fishing for like the trophies or anything. I always was like, I want to make some money over the weekend fishing tournaments. Like they'll be fun. I never thought I'd ever go to college or anything for fishing. So come like my senior year, Bill Matthews, the coach of SMC, he reached out to me and he's like, hey man, do you want to come fish for me? And I was just like, I'd love to, but I played hockey my whole life. I signed with the junior hockey team, and I'm like, I'm ready to go play some junior hockey. So I turned down that offer, and come like camp, or like a couple weeks before camp, things just went kind of south, and things kind of didn't go exactly what was according to plan. So I was like, I'm not a big fan of this, because my biggest thing was I wanted a degree and do whatever I love to do. So whether it's hockey or fishing, because I had a huge passion.
So before
for
this,
both
would you
of them.
say hockey? Before this all happened, would you say hockey was your biggest passion, or fishing?
Hockey by far was my number one priority. I always just had a passion for fishing. Like I remember going up and playing the CCM World Invite in Sarnia, Canada, right on the St. Clair River, and everyone's out relaxing at the hotel after a game. I'm sitting out there trying to catch walleyes.
Oh, so you did both. Like they were both a big passion for it. Didn't matter.
I've always
Gotcha.
like anytime I could grab a rod with me and go on a tournament somewhere, that's what I'd want to do.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because I only had like the one passion, which was fishing, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and so come like, I don't know, 2 weeks before camp, I reached out back to Bill and I was like, hey man, like, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your program. I'm not sure if I want to. I'll probably stick with the hockey thing, but I'd love to check it out. And I went and checked out SMC. I love the campus, and I love the whole idea of just the school paying for me and just being able to travel everywhere, which was really cool. So I kind of went for it. I bit the bullet, and now I'm here.
That's cool. That's good. That's a much more interesting story than I got, for sure. So I have one question though. You said you fished a lot, and like you said you fished a lot in high school tournaments, and you traveled in high school. Did you feel like doing that in high school prepared you for college, or would you disagree with that? Did you think college was harder and you weren't prepared for it?
High school definitely prepared me, just learning the fundamentals, learning the grind of some tournaments, especially growing up in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin.
Right.
You are going to experience a lot of grinding.
Kind of like
places.
northern Indiana.
Like
probably not as... Or northern is probably not as bad.
Especially I grew up on
some of the stories you told me.
Yeah, I grew up on the chain of lakes where I've won a tournament with 6 pounds. So like,
yeah,
it's not very good, but it's home, and it's like, I've learned that in college everything's different. Like,
yeah, that
everything that I've really learned, like obviously like I keep the same fundamentals, but just there's so many different ideas that I've been open to in college that have taught me.
See, I like me, I feel like I learned more in high school. Like, I wish I would have learned more, I should say, because when I came to college, I got butt whooped. I was humbled.
Yeah.
So I feel like it did prepare me, but like it also didn't. Like the competition went from high school kids. Like no offense to high school kids listening, I'm not trying to hate on them. It's just it's like high school kids. There's like 5 teams there that are out of however many that are like who are good and like are youth that they're gonna beat you if you don't bring your A game. Like that's how they are. Then you come to college and there's like 70 boats that are gonna beat you if you don't bring your A game.
Yeah.
So there's a big jump there. So that's
Exactly.
I feel like high school didn't prepare me for the jump that we took, but it did too at the same time.
Especially nowadays, so many college kids just have the opportunities, especially with forward-facing sonar.
It's not even that. It's just now.
It's just
it's how the programs are.
Yeah.
It's how
so many people
we get
know
funded.
things.
Carson Newman's funded. I mean, all these colleges, Adrian Montevallo. I mean, the list goes on that are just funded. I think, and they send. I'm not saying that all these kids are insane hammers and the next Kevin Van Dams or better than Kevin Van Dams. Just they get so many opportunities. You're bound to learn. It's like every time you go play basketball, you shoot free throws. The first time, it's not gonna be that good. But like when you do it over and over and over, it's gonna start getting
Practice
better,
is key.
better. So I think that's where that big jump came from.
Yeah.
That's where I think. But so you're in college now. So what you have a favorite experience or experience you'd like to share with us about?
My favorite
college?
experience in college. There's 2 that I.
Well, let's hear.
There's a
Let's
lot,
go.
but there's 2 that really stand out to me, and
Let's
it was
hear it.
my second ever college event, and we were driving down to Lake of the Ozarks, and just like everything leading up to that event was just kind of in my head. I was just like, no matter what, I want to qualify for 5 national championships, because you get one chance at being an underclassman, then you have your sophomore or
Your freshman,
your freshman,
sophomore,
sophomore, junior, and senior year.
After you graduate.
And it's like, in my head, I always had this thing where it's like, I have to do it. Like, not many kids have an opportunity to do it, so I would love to be in that class of kids. And so, I don't know, the whole week just leading up to it, I just had this very weird feeling, just such a weird feeling. And I knew, like...
Would you say that feeling's like, what would you describe that feeling? You said it's a weird feeling.
Like,
you can have a lot of weird feelings. Like, did you have to go to the bathroom kind of weird? Or is it like, man, I'm going to do good, or I'm nervous that I'm not going to do good?
It's just, I think it's intuition a little bit, and I just think you just have this weird gut feeling. I've never been able, like, I know every pro and every college kid that has found success, some way or another, they've had a weird feeling before they went to their event that they were going to fish.
Right.
So, like, coming down to Lake of the Ozarks, I had a weird feeling, and I kind of just started off like, I was like, all right, it's Ozarks Mountains, Lake of the Ozarks in October. Like, these fish should, be chewing the top water. Yeah, like, it's fall.
You're
like,
not at school.
My go-to fall bait sometimes is most of the time
everywhere
is a buzzbait. I love throwing a buzzbait, especially.
That's why I was like, it's almost everywhere. Maybe not St. Clair, but like any largemouth body of water, it's a buzzbait.
I just think, like, for some reason, like, the fall bass, they just love a reaction strike, and I kind of just figured out a pattern, and I talked with some kids on the team, and we kind of broke things down to what we wanted to do, and me and my partner, he had to be taking some sort of test back at school, so I
was in his class actually. We both failed our accounting exam. Literally the week before this, me and him are in Dardanelle. We failed the accounting exam. Our coach Bill, he made Davis drive all the way back for that from Dardanelle to Michigan. Then from Michigan back to Ozarks. It was
just in time for the tournament.
Just so he can make sure he fixed his grade. A lot of people, I don't mean to interrupt your story, but I feel like a lot of people think that college fishing, you don't have to worry about your grades. It's the exact opposite. There's no leeway for us in college about grades. It's that. But back on topic to
and
fishing.
So the whole week I practiced with I had his boat. I don't own a boat, so I had his boat, and I just kind of was out practicing almost every day by myself. So it was really cool experience, just because I've never had the opportunity to go out and really fish out of a boat by myself. So it was really fun to be able to break down a lake, let alone Lake of the Ozarks,
Right.
by
A
yourself.
massive lake where there's so much water.
There's so much water. There's so many docks. I mean, millions of ideas and options.
Wasn't
to
it said
fish.
like the bank of Ozarks is like longer than the coast of California
Yeah,
itself, or
like
something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of water.
Yeah.
And all of it looks good too, unfortunately.
All of it looks
Like,
good.
you go there like, man, there's gonna be a fish right there. Look at that rock pile that just sticks. Oh my gosh, and it's just everywhere.
Brush piles everywhere.
Yeah,
like,
it's everywhere. All the docks, you're like, man, this dock should have one, and then you're like, all right, oh, this dock should have one, and you just keep going down, and it's a big issue there.
So with my game plan I was kind of like, all right, go big or go home. So I kind of broke down a game plan where I'm not getting that many bites. Well, practice was weird because I got a lot of bites, but not that many big bites. But I knew I was on the right pattern to get big bites, and I knew tournament day. There's like I'm gonna lock 2 baits in my hand, and if I suck, I sucked, and if I did good, I did good. There's no way around it. I wasn't gonna do mediocre. It was good or horrible. So tournament day, very fortunate. We only caught 4 fish for like 16-10, and it took like 17-1 to win. And I ended up taking third, which qualified me for my national championship, which is leading into my favorite experience in college fishing, just for the sole reason of MLF National Championship in February on Lake Toho. I mean, like, anybody's game. Like, I mean, you could literally be sitting in 75th place after day 1 and literally bump up to the top 10 just because.
You could catch 40 pounds.
Yeah,
and it lives
like
there.
Dean Rojas did. Like, it's crazy.
Right.
So I'd probably say that's my favorite experience just because how crazy.
So you're looking forward to them going back?
I am. I mean, me and him both qualified at Gunnersville. I mean, we've been both talking about it nonstop.
Since when? Since it came out in like
since
August or
yeah,
something like that?
since the second we figured out we're going back to Toho in January, I was like,
it's a topic that comes up at the dinner table every night here at SMC is going to Lake Toho, so we're definitely looking forward to
yeah,
that.
that's for sure. So, what are a few things you learned this year that,
I learned? I'd say it's a lot mental game. Like, I feel like I learned the fundamentals and everything throughout, I don't know, just fishing in Indiana and fishing everywhere. I feel like I've learned the fundamentals just doing that the whole time, but I think the biggest thing I learned this year was just my mentality, because I sucked, like I said, and I was in my head like, dude, am I not that good at fishing? Like, I swear, like I'm a good fisherman. Like I'm like, I just must not be a good fisherman. And we sucked and got to a point. And when spring came here, when me and him fished the tournament, and we took second because we only had 4 fish against the Dylan and Dalton curse, actually. And I'm just joking, but we took second. And I was like, and it was a pattern that we found ourselves, and no one else found. No one else even had a dream of finding this pattern that we found, and it put it in my head like, okay, I'm not bad at fishing. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, what's going on? And then we went to Gunnersville, and we just never put the pressure on ourselves. Like, I feel like I put always too much pressure on myself at Harris, Ozarks, both times at Ozarks. Where else? Sandusky Bay. I mean, Dardanelle, like Kentucky. Like all the tournaments before Gunnersville, I feel like I put way too much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And we just went and we had fun. I think that was probably the most fun trip I've had in college fishing, is that probably. We just had so much fun fishing, and we just let the day take its course.
I think
we didn't try and force anything. We just let the day take its course. We had fun, and we caught 17 something, and we qualified, and that's where it really started. And then just throughout the whole time, like, we went to Hartwell next, and we sucked on day 1. Like, we had 7 pounds. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, well, we're going out tomorrow with nothing to lose. Instead of being mad that I had 7 pounds and in my head about it, I was like, I'm going out tomorrow with nothing to lose. I'm doing the same thing. I know the fish I'm on, the fish I've seen, just getting them to bite. And that's every time you go to Hartwell. Like, that's every time. And then we got a lot of them to bite, and we jumped up over 50 spots. Like we're in the top like 50, I think. We're like, oh, sweet. And then we go to Lay Lake. Same thing. We didn't really suck on day 1, but we were right there. We just needed like 2 more pounds, I think, to qualify. And if that, I don't even think it was that. It was like a pound out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many fish we didn't catch today. Like, there's so many fish there, we didn't catch them. Didn't get in my head at all. And it's like, we're just going out having fun. Like, we know what we're
Yeah.
doing. We're catching them doing things that's fun. We're having a good time with the boat. Like Tonkel, like I fished with Connor Tonkel at tournament, and we just had fun the whole time. We were just joking. We were having sing-alongs the whole time. Like Bill he had his GoPro with us, I think, and he was just laughing at the sing-alongs we were doing. And
Yeah.
like we were just having fun the whole time. And being serious about fishing. Not like we're just sitting there like, ooh, hopefully they bite. We're being serious about fishing.
But you're just having a good time doing it, and that's the biggest
exactly.
thing.
You're having a good time doing it, but you're actually committed doing it. Like, you can't just like not take it serious. Like, I'm not trying to say that. I'm
You
taking
always
it
wanna be
serious as I
focused.
can, but you also just can't have. It's just, I don't know how to put it. It's just like when you're having a good time, the pressure that you put on your shoulders, I feel like, just is relieved, but you're still laser focused in the tournament. And I don't know, we caught, like, I don't know, one of the biggest bags of the tournament, and we climbed the leaderboard in the top 10. And same thing with Pickwick the whole time. Like, we're talking to everyone, they're like, oh, this like sucks. We're catching like 5 keepers a day, barely. And me and Tonko are like, what the heck's going on? We're catching 15 pounds minimum every day of practice. Like, we can't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like I was at one point in time like, I don't really know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go catch a catfish real quick. Like, it'll be fun. Like, and there's so many catfish in Pickwick, and I'm like, and for whatever reason, I'm getting by the flutter spoon like every cast with the live scope, and I'm like, and we're like over 25 feet of water, just over to another point. And I'm like, dang, it looks like a catfish. It's swimming like one. It's acting like one. I'm like, I was like, screw it, might as well just catch it real quick. I was like 20 feet away from the boat. I just flipped my spoon over there, and I got like 4 something largemouth. I'm like, what the heck? Like, that's crazy. And like, just like whatever we can do, we couldn't really do it wrong. It felt like so, and it just the pressure that we had on ourselves just wasn't there. Like, it was, even though it was the national championship, it just wasn't there. And you're just having a good time. Just your mental game is. I think that's where I learned the most. I think.
Nice.
That's what I think.
Nice. What do you feel like you can improve on moving into this season?
What could I improve on? There's a lot. I just don't know where to start. I'm gonna guess not being as stubborn. I'm kind of a big stubborn person when it comes to fishing. If someone's like, "Hey, let's go flip pads," I'm gonna be like, doesn't sound like a good time. Instead of like taking the opportunity, like, okay, that's something different. Like, we've been out throwing a chatterbait in this grass flat all day. Like, let's go up there, maybe catch 1 4-pounder. Like, I've never fished a tournament with 4-pounder. It really doesn't help us. So, I need to start taking that opportunity. Like, okay, yeah, we did this all day. We have 15 pounds doing this. Dylan goes, hey, let's go flip the pads instead of being stubborn. Let's go do that, and it'll help me learn and improve as an angler, I feel like. But another way is, I'm gonna say, what would be a good way to word it? I just feel like I need to be less in my head too. I know I just said a lot about mentality. It's like, if I'm throwing a crankbait and I don't know, like the color, I'll be like, this color's not it, if they're not biting or something like that. And I feel like just being less in my head about that kind of stuff, like, oh, because this jerkbait has a little bit of rust on the hook, that it just drives me nuts, stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like I need to be a little bit less in my head. Which, don't ever take rust not serious. I don't use anything rusty. Don't ever do it. Don't ever. But I'm just saying, like, things get in my head real quick where it's like, crap. And I feel like I need to be better at that.
So what pro inspired you the most?
I'm gonna say Mark Zona, because Mark Zona lives right by my house, and my parents have a good friend, and he was actually college roommates with Mark Zona, so he had, introduced me to him. And Mark Zona took me under his wing. He gave me some stuff, gave me some advice of his, and I'd say he inspired me the most. And then I actually really started watching Mark Zona after that, because I realized who he was as a person, like how great of a guy he actually was. So I started watching him on Bassmaster, his TV shows, on his Awesome Fishing Show. I was like, this guy's super cool. I was like, I want to be just like Mark Zona. So I'd say Mark Zona would be, if you're going to count him as a pro, the pro who inspired me the most, for sure.
Nice.
So, but let's hear about a few things that you learned this year. So I talked about my mentality. What do you feel like you learned the most this year in college fishing?
So going to, how you were talking about Gunnersville and how we're just kind of letting things flow.
Right.
both at Harris, both at I mean, even when I went to Toho and even like Ozarks, we had like a game plan, and like having a game plan is good and always following.
And you should always have.
You should always have a game plan. You should always like follow your game plan. But like the difference was at Gunnersville is, remember, we showed up to our first spot where this one spot, like, I mean, Dalton made a cat. No. Yeah, no, but like I'm talking about the one spot, like the really good spot.
Yeah.
Where we rolled up to, and first cast Dalton caught like a 5 something. I caught like a 4 something. We went back 2 days later to check up on it. Made one cast with all throwing a swim jig.
Right. Yeah.
Like
like literally
we
the
made 2
LS lures. Like, I'm not trying to yes, they do help us out a lot, but I'll let you talk about that.
Like literally, like we made 2 casts with the swim jig and a 5 and a 4. Come back 2 days later, I made 1 cast with the swim jig, caught a 4-pounder. We left, and like, I mean, we showed up there first thing in the morning, and
there was a boat.
There was a boat there, but like they weren't right on top of where those fish were. And then we started fishing. We fished for about 5-10 minutes and nothing. I was like, all right, let's go to the different spot.
No, you're missing a key part of that story, buddy. You had a absolute unit.
Oh yeah, I had. Oh yeah, I had like a 6-pounder swirl on my swim jig, like right at the boat on top of the lily pads.
It
like,
didn't even eat it. Like,
yeah, like
he can't be mad at himself for, like, he didn't lose it.
It just like swirled on it, and it wasn't what exactly what wanted to happen.
They were there though. It really gave us confidence.
Yeah, it gave us confidence, but they were just not eating the swim jig. So I was like, all right, let's run to this other spot. And then right at this other spot, like we put the swim jigs down. And we picked up the wacky rig and the Carolina rig, and then we started fishing this hard bottom spot. I caught a 3, you caught a 4 something, and then I think throughout the day we just kind of like put away the moving baits, and we just like really worked like slow baits, like a wacky rig. We worked, we threw a fluke around a little bit. I flipped like a 1/4 ounce Senko into some of the isolated pads, and then it just like we made an adjustment, even though throughout practice we're easily catching 17 plus pounds of just swim jig fish, like all on a swim jig, maybe 1 or 2 on a chatterbait, but primarily on a swim jig. So like we called the LS boys and we're like, dude, you guys
crazy.
Yeah, we're like,
awesome.
you guys need to send us like a ton of swim jigs like ASAP. So they sent us like overnight, shipped it day before the derb. We got them in, and I mean we had like, I think I had 2 swim jigs tied on 2 separate rods.
I think I did too.
Like, we were so ready to, like, just put the smacking on with the swim jig. And, I mean, like, after 10, 15 minutes of fishing, we made instantly an adjustment. And that's one thing that we never did throughout the season. And I'm so, like, that's one thing that I'm looking forward to the most.
You almost.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm looking forward to the most going into this season. It's just, no matter what I know and what I've learned throughout practice days, tournament day is a new day.
The fish are really the ones who make the decisions, not us. Like, at the end of the day, like,
yeah, like,
is that what you're saying? Like,
yeah, that's the biggest thing.
You gotta let the fish tell you.
Yeah. You gotta play the wind, you gotta play the patterns, and you just gotta play smart. Like even on Dardanelle, like even though we've had to make adjustments, like Dardanelle, we just didn't. We didn't make the right adjustments. We didn't. Like we were just so stubborn into, oh my god, we're catching a ton of fish on a buzzbait. Yep. But like tournament day just didn't work out, and that's one thing that, like I say, I'm looking forward to next year is just hopefully, because it's so hard to do it on the water.
You can't do it every time too.
It's so hard because when you look back, you're like, oh, I should have done that. But it's just like, obviously, like the times where you do make the move and it works and it pays off, it's like, you know, I'm happy, I'm proud of myself for doing something like that.
Nice. So that's an up. So what's your down? You gotta have a down. Everyone has their best and their worst. What do you feel like is your worst, and how do you feel like you can improve on it?
I'd say, I mean, a little bit has to do with just still making adjustments, because I know I need to do that, and I still need to continue to make adjustments no matter what, even if you're catching them. Play smart.
Right.
But I think I really want to spend a lot more time this year learning live scope. We've spent a good amount of time this year really focusing on learning live scope and seeing how different baits make different fish react.
Different speeds.
Different.
I mean, everything.
And you're slowly starting to pick things apart and figuring out the whole live scope deal. But I think especially like looking at the schedule, a lot of it's
Yeah.
going to be scoping, like especially like what Murray in January, like
And I think Kentucky, like in April, will be
Yeah.
too, 100%.
absolutely. And if we go to Hartwell, I mean,
obviously every time
exactly.
we go to Hartwell, it's live scope.
Like Gunnersville, you're going to have to utilize
that's the
your
thing.
forward-facing sonar.
Honestly, it doesn't matter what time your live scope is. You have to be good at it and understand it everywhere you go, every time of the year, because it will play some role in some way. You don't always have to see fish.
Exactly.
You don't
That's
always
what I was
have to.
going to get at.
You have to understand what you're looking at 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
like at Harris, did we ever see a fish eat one of our baits?
It's just you knew the right patch of grass.
Yeah, you're turning the live scope and you see a hole in the grass, or you see a patch of grass,
or
that's completely different than everywhere else.
Or just the grass line too. Like you can throw down the grass line. Like
exactly.
100%.
Like,
and I feel like a lot with live scope is fish behavior too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, it falls back into making adjustments. It's honestly still the fish's decision. You just have to know how to. Built into that.
Absolutely.
So, do you watch a lot of guys on live scope? Like, do you like go on YouTube and like how are you trying to become better? Do you feel like you could watch YouTube and do it, or no, I can't. Like, I have to go do it, or a little bit of both?
I think. See, the biggest thing is like a lot of people say like, oh, how do you get good at fishing? Do you watch YouTube? Yes and no. You do have to watch YouTube, and you do have to have these pros and these people explain to you. Like, before I couldn't call this guy a pro, but now he's a pro. Like Milliken, like I loved watching him just because how good he was with forward facing sonar before anybody really else was very good with forward facing sonar. And it has like, even like watching, like a big inspire for me is like Seth. Before we go into that question, is like I've watched them and I see what they do, but until I go do it and I try to replicate those same ideas, the patterns and stuff like that, multiple different bodies of water, because you can't just watch, like, I don't know, like
you can't just search up bass fishing and watch some guy. Yeah, I understand.
Like, you can't, like, even like watching like the Johnson brothers on the St. Lawrence River where they crush giant smallmouth with freaking drop shots. Like, you can't go to like one lake that has smallmouth, throw a drop shot and be like, all right, they don't know what they're talking about, it doesn't work here. Like, no, try it on like multiple various different bodies of water. You're gonna notice some lakes, these fish enjoy like eating a drop shot. Like, we fish Benton Harbor a lot.
Conditions.
Yeah, and under what conditions? Like, we fish Benton Harbor a lot, and that's a big old smallmouth fishery.
I've seen one smallmouth caught on a
like
drop shot there.
We've thrown a drop shot a ton on Benton Harbor. Smallmouth fishery, river
Great
current.
Lake smallmouth too.
Yeah,
it's Great Lakes with gobies, alewives. I mean, it's
you watch the Johnson brothers catch them on a drop shot.
100%.
It does not work out there.
I challenge any one of you guys listening, by the way, to go to Benton Harbor and prove to me that you caught a fish over 2.5 pounds on drop shot.
Like, it probably could happen. Don't get me wrong. It probably could happen.
It probably could, but it probably won't at the same time.
We've just been out there so many times, and they'll eat a Ned rig over a drop shot, which is like, and that's something that you just gotta like learn from watching.
Which goes into what you said. You can't just watch YouTube and be the master. And
exactly.
Yeah.
It's taking people's ideas and using those same ideas to create your own. I think that's one thing that, especially nowadays, so many people do wrong, is they just expect somebody, hey man, hey Billy.
We see it on our team all the time.
Yeah. Hey Billy Buck, can you get me a waypoint on, I don't know, Gunnersville? I wanna. Oh yeah, here. This is the waypoint. You throw a DT10. Make sure you throw it this way.
Make sure you cast the tree that is in front of the red house, not the window at the red house.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then, oh man, Billy Buck, you screwed me over. I didn't catch anything that day. Well, or Billy Buck could be like, hey man, I'm fishing some hard bottom. I'm throwing DT10s on it. I found a lot of success doing that. All right, I fished the spot. This spot sucked, but let me go find other spots that are very similar to this spot. Oh, I fished 3 other spots, they sucked, but then I pull up on this spot and holy smokes, man, I'm on freaking 20 plus pounds. Like,
and you're like, oh, this spot had chunky shell or whatever.
Yeah, like what was the difference between that hard bottom and this hard bottom? And that's when you got to start thinking like.
And that's where I think, and not just kids on our team, but I think that's just everyone.
Everybody in general.
They just always, this guy told me to go throw a Carolina rig plow jockey, but you can't buy the white one. You have to buy the purple one with white dots at Walmart. You can't buy the white one with purple dots at Walmart. Yeah. And then you gotta go I think people just don't No, they're like, oh, well, they just weren't biting. I think that's never the case. I think the fish are always going to bite something.
And I've seen this, like,
it just
not only...
it's a downfall of mine, too. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I'm absolutely not. But...
haven't you seen this even in local fishing, too? Like, I've definitely seen, like, especially after tournaments, some older guys going, dude, what the heck, man? You caught him. I didn't. You literally told me to throw a frog. Like... Yeah.
Well,
like,
what were you doing with your frog? Like,
yeah, like,
or where were you throwing it?
Even if you guys are doing the same exact thing, odds are a guy is doing something a little bit better. You might not notice it. You might not think they're doing something different, but they are definitely doing something different. And that's one thing that you just got to pay attention to.
I don't even know if it's different. I mean, it's different from what you're doing, but it's not like crazy. Like, oh, he's adding a nail weight in there just so it sinks a little bit or something. No, it's nothing like crazy.
I just think it's just
like,
you're looking and you're
he just knows what
apart.
he's looking at.
And you're making more efficient casts.
He has the pattern.
Whatever.
He has the pattern. You have the bait, and you have to have the pattern, not just the bait. You have to
exactly.
So, yeah. So you did talk about Seth. We talked about my pro. You talked about Seth a little bit. Would you say Seth is your favorite, or your one who's inspired you the most into this fishing world?
I think I can't put just one guy that has inspired me, but I think three guys that inspired me the most is I'll probably have to say Seth Feider, Brandon Palaniuk, and John Cox. Just for the sole reason of Seth has, I mean, he's a Minnesota boy, so it's a little bit closer to home, you know, and Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan, they all kind of fish a little bit differently. I will say that Minnesota and Michigan fish a lot closer just for the sole reason of a crap ton of lakes everywhere, and you could do so many different various things and so many different
the same weather patterns too as well. So
like watching him grow up in the north and traveling and watching the style of he fish is awesome. Brandon Palaniuk, especially this year, has helped me a lot. Is like, remember last winter we were sitting there and I was telling you, dude, we have to learn how to really, really throw a jerkbait. Like, I'm not talking about throw a jerkbait. I'm talking really throw a jerkbait. I'm like, Brandon Palaniuk and Kevin Van Dam are two of some of the best anglers, if not the best anglers to ever do it. Lots of debate. I don't know. I don't want to get into that.
That's not what we're getting into.
But like, two phenomenal anglers that have found success all over the country, any type of conditions, all throwing a jerkbait. So I'm like looking at this and I'm like, I gotta be very good at throwing a jerkbait. So I think me and you spent this year a lot throwing jerkbaits from open water to like even now, like we found so much success throwing a jerkbait.
Just last weekend we didn't really put down a jerkbait, or no, not last weekend, but 2 weekends ago we didn't put down a jerkbait the whole time.
Yeah,
I mean, it has become a big arsenal. I see where you're going with it.
Yeah, and so like that's like I looked at Brandon Palaniuk and I looked at Kevin Van Dam. Is like, all right, they're so good at that, and I want to be just as good. I mean, it's so hard to say that, but like I want to be as good as them throwing a jerkbait. So I spent a lot of time this year focusing on just throwing a jerkbait, whether it's in muddy water, rivers. Great Lakes, like anywhere. Just that's one thing. And then John Cox, I mean,
this is one I was interested to hear about.
John Cox, he's such a derber, and the term Durban just goes to just a guy that's so addicted to fishing and just fishes so much. And it's not necessarily the style, because he loves to fish up shallow. So do I, but I also love fishing out deep. I don't really care. I don't have a preference.
He just has the passion.
But when I look up to him as the passion, like I don't know any other guy that's really doing it besides him that's fishing MPFL, MLF, and Bassmaster. Like,
great. There's no one. I mean,
there's really nobody.
The only guy who could really compete would be like Kente Kamir, who fishes the opens and the elites.
And then Patrick Walters
with the MPFL.
Yeah, but it's just like to see him, and he doesn't win everything, but just
he's found success.
He finds success at every level, and he just does it every week. It doesn't matter if he's driving to Arkansas for a $15,000 tournament. You'll find him at the boat ramp.
Right.
You know, and I look at that as like the biggest thing.
He just has the passion behind it to just go and do it.
Absolutely. So
you talked a lot. So you talked a little bit about how Brandon Palaniuk, how we were sitting there watching, like not watching him, and like we got to figure out the circuit. Like the whole winter we were doing that. So it's winter here. and we've obviously had a lot of talk. What lake are you looking most forward to going to this year, I should say?
I mean, no surprise it was my favorite college experience. I am itching like crazy to go back to Toho. I mean, especially in January.
So, are you looking forward to it because it's the national championship, or the fact that IndyCast could be a 10-pounder, or do you think like a pattern that is going to be the most fun because you think we can get on a pattern that you want to get on, or all of that, or
See, my biggest thing is like when you talk about pattern, I have no clue what these fish are going to be doing. These fish are going to be doing a little bit of everything, and it's especially like with the coast right there, anything could happen. Especially we're going into hurricane season, that can change things up like drastically. Like let's say in December,
and weather patterns.
Yeah,
Florida
exactly.
It could be 30 degrees or it could be 90. Like we don't know.
I'm keeping all my options open. I'm going to guarantee I'm gonna do like 6 or 7 different patterns that I guarantee I'm gonna try, but I am willing to, I'm gonna have at least 10 plus rods on the deck ready to do everything.
Yep.
And then obviously come tournament day, we'll narrow it down from 10 rods to about 9 rods, be nice and...
If that, we might add a couple rods actually.
Yeah, we might
go from 9 rods to like a dozen rods.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just, it's a national championship. I'm excited to get another shot at it, and it's Florida in January. It's tons of pre-spawn. There's going to be some on beds, but it's going to be a lot of pre-spawn largemouth and I think in my opinion, it's the time where the bass are going to be the heaviest.
Yep.
So I am expecting...
And probably like the most willing to eat, too.
Yeah, so I think I'm expecting, I'm not saying we are. I'm definitely not saying we are, but I'm saying I would not be shocked to see 3 to 5 boats crack over 30 pounds.
That'll be fun.
And I'm excited to see whoever that is,
It could be us.
It could be us.
It's fun because it could be us.
That's the thing. That's why that's why it's
sure.
Florida. Because it could at any moment be us.
Okay. I got a challenge for you real quick. Kind of getting into like wrapping this whole podcast up for today. You said 10 rods. So that's 10 rods. Let's bring that down to 2. If you had to pick 2 baits going there, Kentucky Lake, Gunnersville, Saginaw Bay, what are those 2 baits? Let's hear.
2 baits that I think are going to be the most versatile throughout this whole season. I think a chatterbait. Just flat out,
You can't go wrong with chatterbait.
There's so many options. I mean, number 1 is a jerkbait. I think we could catch them on a jerkbait absolutely every single body of water we fish.
Yeah. I don't see one on the schedule this year that I don't think we can catch a qualifying bag on a jerkbait.
Yep.
At least a qualifying bag, not a winning bag. So
I think a jerkbait is going to be on the deck at almost every single event, and I think what's another bait? I think
so. A chatterbait's just an honorable mention at this point in time.
It's so hard. It's between a chatterbait and a crankbait, along with the jerkbait. I just don't know which one I'd have to. I'd probably have to go with. This is so hard.
It's so sad, dude.
I'd probably do chatterbait just for the sole reason of I think it just catches them everywhere. Especially I think Gunnersville.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with chatterbait. If you only time you can go wrong with chatterbait is Lake of the Ozarks 2023, where you go, it's 40 degree water temps, it's 21 degrees outside, and you're like, I'm throwing chatterbait the whole time. But
exactly. No, so I think
something like that. That's only.
I think my 2 baits are gonna have to be a jerkbait and a chatterbait.
Yep, for sure. Yeah.
I think that'll be.
I don't blame you. You can't go wrong with either one of those 2.
No. So I'm gonna ask you now. What's your lake that you're most forward to looking for on this whole entire schedule?
Have to say Gunnersville. Toho, yes. The opportunity's there to catch your next PB, the opportunity's there to catch 30 pounds, the opportunity's there to do all this
Change
stuff.
your life, too.
Yeah. The opportunity's there for it, and that is definitely, I cannot wait. It's not the pressure, but the intensity is there. But the lake itself and the tournament itself, that I think I could do the best at and catch them the way I would have the most fun catching fish is Gunnersville, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say Gunnersville, just because I can catch them any way I want. If I want to catch a crank, I could. If I want to catch them on a wacky worm, I could. If I want to catch them on a glide bait, I could.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I have the right idea going into that tournament.
Mm-hmm.
to do very well.
Especially with the previous knowledge that you have on Lake
Yes,
Guntersville.
and then what also I've learned this year, like going to Pickwick and how TVA like in Kentucky, like how TVA like fish act. I feel like I could do the best there.
So would you say all TVA lakes are the same?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nope.
I knew the answer to that. I just
Absolutely
wanted
not.
to hear you
Some
say
other
it.
people might not know the answer. No lake is the same. Not a TVA doesn't matter. No lake is the same.
But would you say there's a certain aspect of every TVA lake that could be played on every
Yes,
single
100%
TVA lake?
current. Play the current.
Play the current.
Play the current. Like that's what I think. Like we'll get that into a later episode. Like how like what I've learned about that we don't want to drift off into that. We're talking about just introducing ourselves, letting you guys get to know us. But I'd really, yes, play
Current.
the current. That's
Okay.
the only thing. I shouldn't say the only thing, but that's the main thing that would tie them all together. That's
So I know from just me knowing you, I know that TVA lakes are some of your favorite lakes to
Mhm.
fish. Any of your favorite two baits to play on the TVA lakes?
yeah, because I would say my favorite two baits are, I'm gonna say crankbait, like whether that's a square bill or a DT10 or a 6XD or whatever. It could be any of those, or a glide bait for sure. Because I this year I learned a lot with the glide bait and it turned into a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun just scoping with it and seeing, not even just catching fish on it, just seeing what interested. Like I saw my first Indian, a 7-pounder. Like I didn't catch it, but I guarantee it was over 7 pounds. And I go to Lay Lake and I see a 5-6 pounder come up at it during practice. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. And like just what the glide bait can tell you a lot about a spot. I really think that would make it one of my most versatile baits, just because it shows you what's there. You like when you throw a chatterbait in a spot, you catch a lot of 2-3 pounders and maybe like 5, but a glide bait will tell you truthfully what is in that area
Mhm.
because it'll draw.
Absolutely.
So that's why I think.
And so
a glide bait.
and this has, I'm asking you, with having a search bait and a draw bait, what other baits would you put on that category to, like, you know, for the viewers to you know, really find out what's about that spot? Like, is it just only a strictly glide bait? Like, what type of glide bait could
What
could
type of glide bait?
a mag draft possibly be part of that equation?
A mag draft could, but I feel like the way a glide bait, want to say acts. A mag draft, you just straight reel. When you stop reeling, it goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
When you are chopping a glide bait, you're twitching it. It's real slow, and it's real slow. And I mean, if you're a 6-pound bass, you're like, whoa, what is that? And you go up to it if you're a 6-pounder. You're not necessarily going to bite it. And if I need to stop it or something to like help him catch up to it, like I'm looking at my scope and I see him come up, I can stop it, and it's not going to go like this. And when it goes like this, I think it'll spook him. So I think that I think a glide bait just helps prevent spooking them versus, like, you can 100% see what's in an area with the mag draft. Like, they will chase it, but I think you learn a lot more.
So when
with
we're
the
talking
glide
about
bait.
glide bait, are you talking about single jointed, multi jointed?
I single jointed just because I feel like chopping it is the most versatile way.
And what do you mean by that? You mean just
chopping
like,
it like with the Milliken style, where you're watching him stare at his live scope, which, like, I know it's a controversial topic. We don't need to get into that, and he's sitting there watching this glide bait, and he'll throw it over a brush pile, and he doesn't. I mean, he has a clue which fish is going to come up at it, but it's truthfully he finds out when he gets to the brush pile and he sees a fish come up. That I think it really tells you, I don't know what's there. You see 10 fish chase it out, like on a lake by my house. I don't really want to give this lake up too much, but over by my house, I spent a lot of time this summer where I would go to this brush pile on the same lake, and every time I would go to it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at my screen. I had 10 fish chase them out, and I looked at my mom or my dad or whoever's with me, and I'd be like, you see all these dots, and there'd be like a dozen, and I'd be like, not one of those fish is under 4 pounds, I can promise you that. And they're like, are you sure? Like, they're looking at me like I'm like a big alcoholic, drug addict kind of kid. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, are you okay? I'm like, trust me, like, there's giants that are living here.
and I mean, we've seen that firsthand on some lakes around here in Michigan. Remember that one brush pile?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that either. But and I looked, and I went out there to this lake by my house with my mom one day, and I did something different with the glide bait. The same bait that I threw at these fish 100 times. I did something a little bit different, and I got one to eat, and it was 5.37 pounds. So I feel like it really tells you what's in there, just because you'll get these, and you'll get the fish to chase it. So I think that's why it's a very versatile bait. And a crankbait, the reason I think it is, you cover so much here.
All right, so now that we've pretty much kind of gotten to know a little bit about you and a little bit to know about me, to close this off for any of the younger generation that's watching, what is one piece, or just anything, any advice you would give to the younger generation that is trying to move from
Advice. You mean from like, or am I talking to a high school kid here, or
like
am I talking to...
You could possibly be talking to a high school
4-year-old.
kid, to anybody.
Because I would say it's different. A 4-year-old, I would say focus on your fundamentals. Like, learn casting, learn what baits, like how to fish certain baits. Like, how am I going to fish a crankbait? How am I going to fish a jerkbait? How am tying knots, like the right knots. That's what I would tell.
Well, what about
like a 4-year-old? But a high school kid, I would tell something totally different. I would say, take this as, if you want to be committed into fishing and take it somewhere, be committed, but don't forget to have fun. Because like, I feel like I forgot to have fun. And I mean, a lot of people went out to me like, it doesn't seem like you're having fun anymore. And I forgot to have fun, and then that's when I said at Guntersville, like, it all turned around. And ever since then, I feel like I've been a better fisherman, and I've learned a lot more, and it's made everything more enjoyable. Okay, so just to wrap my statement up, I would say just don't ever stop having fun. Take it as serious as you can. Do your research. It's time on and off the water. I mean, when you're off the water, be looking at your maps, be looking at YouTube, be looking at Tackle Warehouse. Like, notice the difference in baits. Like, when you go to order baits, like, this one has something special about it that the Sixth Sense makes this bait that has something special about it that Strike King doesn't offer, or vice versa, or whatever. Like, notice the difference, just prepare yourself, I should say.
Absolutely.
It's all about preparing yourself on and off the water. So, but I'm not a know-it-all, so let's hear what Dylan has to say about.
I'm targeting the audience, that really want to do something in this fishing industry, or whether it's a tournament angler, tour rep, or something like that, is enjoy bass fishing. Don't get involved in the sponsorships and the dollars and everything. Just focus at a young age, just really trying to fish and learn everything. Enjoy the process, and don't complain that you're not seeing results. Because the results do show.
They're gonna come.
They're gonna come. You just gotta just stay focused and enjoy the journey. I'd say that's the biggest thing.
For sure. No doubt.
Yeah. And that would probably be our first podcast ever. So leave in the comments, because this will be uploaded on YouTube and Spotify. So leave in the comments on YouTube any ideas that you'd like us to change.
Tell us how we can get better. This is our
Yeah.
first one, so the first one isn't always the best. So let's
Not at all.
We
So,
can do better.
Absolutely. And biggest thing is, give us some ideas to talk about for the next podcast. Whether we talk about, a few college tournaments this year, or
there's a lake you want to hear about. I mean, we've been
Or-
almost to any lake in the country.
yeah, or see if we can get somebody else on the podcast. So
Yeah, if you want like guests or whatever, let us know possibilities of guests. No matter what it is, we have a lot of connections, and we can talk to a lot of people. If we want a brand on here, like, you let us know. We'll do our
Absolutely.
best to make it happen. So we appreciate you watching, and like Dylan said, be sure to give us any more ideas if you wouldn't mind liking it and maybe subscribing
we're sharing it.
or sharing it. Yeah, do whatever if you feel like it deserves it, I should say. So, but actually, thank you for listening. This was a new experience for us, and
I'm surprised to anybody that made it this far.
yeah, I'm surprised anybody made this far, and I thank you. Thank you very much. So,
You're a real one.
Yep, for sure. Thank you guys very much, and
Have a good one.
you do. Yep.